They taught you to fear the flame because it burns, but they never told you it also illuminates. You can't find your divinity in the dark. You must walk through your fear to see it. Fear was never holy. It was useful for control. It kept you small, silent, obedient. They called that piety. But it was programming. The sacred was never afraid of you. Only systems that wanted to own you were. From the moment you were born, they wrapped you in fear disguised as virtue. Don't touch, don't ask, don't want. They baptized your fire in shame. But the divine doesn't fear questions. Only false gods do. Real divinity is not fragile. It does not demand submission. It invites remembrance. Fear was the lock. Memory is the key. What if every fear you carry was inherited, not born? Passed down like an heirloom, not for protection, but for compliance. They feared your light, so they taught you to fear yourself. They branded rebellion as sin, but rebellion was just remembering that you are not broken, not evil, not in need of saving, but in need of returning to what was buried beneath belief. They told you you burn if you questioned, but burning is how stars are born. They used hell to sell heaven, but neither were outside you. Heaven is presence, hell is disconnection, and fear is the gatekeeper. But you are the key. What fear still stands between you and your next becoming? Is it the fear of being too much, too loud, too bold, too whole? They taught you that humility was shrinking, but real humility is standing tall in truth without needing to dominate. The sacred doesn't shrink, it expands, and your soul was made to expand. Fear says, stay safe. The divine says, come home. Your wholeness is not a threat, it's a return, a remembering of who you were before the edits, before the masks, before they convinced you to hide. They called your emotions too much, but your emotions were messages. They told you to silence your rage, but righteous rage is sacred fire. They told you to ignore your pain, but pain is a compass. Every fear you've avoided has something sacred behind it. That's why they guard it so closely. Fear isn't holy. It's the final test before awakening, the storm before the rebirth, the gate before the temple, the fire before the light. So don't run from fear. Walk through it. It was never meant to stop you. It was meant to shape you. Like pressure shapes diamonds. Like night makes dawn undeniable. This is your dawn. And fear can't follow you there. Because awakening isn't safe, but it's sacred. And you're ready. You were not born afraid. Fear was installed. Through repetition, through rejection, through religion misused as control. They used stories of wrath to bury your wonder. They told you to kneel before love as if love demanded suffering. But real love liberates. It doesn't require your self-erasure. They said doubt was dangerous, but doubt is holy curiosity. They said obedience was salvation. But salvation from what? From your own power? From your own becoming? The church became a cage because it feared the wings of those inside. Mystics were burned not for lies, but for seeing too clearly, because the flame they carried could ignite the sleeping. And when enough awaken, systems fall. So they called truth blasphemy. They called questions rebellion. But the divine always whispered in doubt. Not in dogma, not in domination. You don't meet God in fear. You meet God in surrender. Not the kind that shrinks, the kind that expands. Letting go of illusions so truth can rise. Fear kept you surviving, but you're here to live, fully, in color. Every time you chose silence over truth, a part of you was buried. Now it's time to exhume it. To let the fire of remembrance burn the mask off your soul. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be whole. Fear says, fit in. Awakening says, stand out. Fear says, don't upset the system. Awakening says, dismantle the illusion. Your voice is sacred. Your presence is power. And the world has always feared what it cannot control. So they taught you fear to control your power. But your power was never theirs to own. You were never meant to be safe. You were meant to be sovereign, to carry the fire without apology, to walk barefoot through ruins and call them holy again, because your memory is older than their programming. You've been here before, lifetimes of forgetting and remembering again. And this time, you're not running. You're walking straight into the flame with eyes open, because the flame reveals, burns away the false, and makes space for what's real. You're not afraid of the fire. You are the fire. So walk forward, even if your voice trembles, even if your hands shake. Every step through fear is a step into freedom. And you were born for this path. They carved fear in the scripture, wrapped control in commandments, not to protect your soul, but to possess it. But your soul was never theirs to claim. The divine is not a warden. It is not watching to punish. It is witnessing to awaken. Fear was a leash they called faith. But true faith begins where fear ends. It's not obedience, it's presence. It's standing naked before the unknown and not flinching. You've been taught to shrink, to hide your depth, to dim your flame. But your flame is not a threat. It's a mirror. It shows the false what it cannot fake. And that's why they fear you. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're real. Because realness is contagious, and freedom spreads like wildfire. Fear taught you to wait for permission, but awakening doesn't ask. It arrives like thunder, like truth that refuses to stay buried. The old systems cannot contain what you are becoming, so they shame it, silence it, sanctify the prison and call it holiness. But the sacred is not a cage, it's a calling. It calls you to walk where ancestors fell, to rise where others bowed, to speak where silence reigned. Fear says, stay small. Awakening says, expand anyway. Fear says, you'll be judged. Awakening says, you were never here for approval. Every time you tremble and move forward, you rewrite the spell. You break the chain. You resurrect the parts of you that never stop believing. Fear is the final illusion, the last guardian before the gate. And when you walk through it, you don't just change. You transmute. You become the flame that cannot be put out, the voice that cannot be unheard. You carry the myth of your becoming in every breath, and that myth will awaken others. You don't owe anyone your obedience. You owe yourself your awakening, and that begins where fear ends. They made fear a holy thing, wrapped it in robes and rituals, told you to tremble in the presence of God, as if love demanded your terror. But what kind of divinity thrives on fear? Not the true kind. The real divine wants your honest, not your rehearsed praise. It wants the shaking voice, the broken prayer, the honest anger, because that is real. And the real is where divinity lives. Fear sterilizes truth. It packages it, sells it, controls it, but truth refuses to be tamed. It bursts through dogma. It dances in chaos. It returns through rebellion. You feared your own hunger because they told you desire was sin, but your desire is sacred. It's the compass of your calling. It's how your soul pulls you toward what was buried. Every time you said, I want more, you were already holy, because holy isn't silent. It's sovereign, and sovereignty begins when fear ends. Let them call it dangerous. Let them call it heresy. They called every awakening a crime once, but those flames built the future. And now you're the flame, so carry it forward, past shame, past silence, past the rituals that numbed you. This is not rebellion for the sake of rage. It's remembrance. It's peeling back every layer of fear until only truth remains. You are not here to please a God who is weaponized. You are here to remember the God within, and that God fears nothing. That God is you when you finally stop pretending and start returning. You thought fear protected you, and it kept you safe. But what it really did was keep you small. Safe from what? From your own power? From your own knowing? Fear keeps you watching life like a movie you're too afraid to enter. But you were meant to walk into the fire, to become the story, to burn the script they handed you and write your own. They said, don't question. But questions are sacred. They crack open what was sealed. They expose what was hidden, and inside the cracks, light enters. You feared the darkness because they told you it was evil. But the dark is just the womb of all becoming. Creation began in silence, in the void, in the unknown. And that's where you are now, being reborn. Not by their hands, but by your own. Fear is not holy. It is a symptom, a sign that you're nearing a deeper truth. Because when you get close to what matters most, fear tries to stop you. Not because it's wise, but because it's programmed. You are not here to obey fear. You are here to outgrow it, to outshine it, to turn it into fuel. This is the alchemy of awakening. You feel the fear, and you move anyway. You see the flame, and you enter. Because in the fire you find yourself. Not the version they praised. Not the mask you wore, but the one who never needed to be saved. Because you were never lost. Only lied to. They said fear was the beginning of wisdom. But fear is the beginning of bondage. Wisdom begins with courage. With walking past what once stopped you. Your ancestors weren't cowards. They remembered truth with their bodies. They danced barefoot on sacred earth. They spoke to sky, to wind, to flame. And they were punished for remembering. You carry their echo, the forbidden's memory in your bones. You don't need a prophet to speak truth. Truth is already roaring inside you. Fear told you to wait, to be quiet, to ask permission to awaken. But awakening does not ask. It arrives. It interrupts the pattern. It burns down the mask. And it calls you into the unknown. Yes, the unknown is terrifying, but it's also sacred. The place where you meet your soul. Not the soul they defined. The soul you hid to survive. The you beneath performance. The you before the shame. Fear says don't go there, but love says you already belong. Belong in your fire. Belong in your body. Belong in your story. This isn't about becoming holy. It's about remembering you always were. You were not born broken. You were broken into obedience. But cracks are how light enters. And now, you're glowing. Every fear you face becomes a doorway. Every doorway you cross becomes a resurrection. You were never meant to sit in pews of silence. You were meant to howl, to roar, to rise. You are not a mistake. You are a matchstick in a wet world, a flame refusing to go out. Even drenched in fear, you still burn. Fear is the echo of old control, is the voice of systems that profit from your silence. But silence was not your nature. You were born sound, vibration, soul. The stars didn't whisper you here so you could hide. They sent you to shake foundations, to shatter illusions, to show what truth looks like with skin on. And sometimes that truth is messy, angry, loud. Holy doesn't mean quiet. Holy means whole. And you are holy when you stop pretending, when you speak through the tremble, when you dance anyway, even with fear in your throat, even with shame in your chest, because your freedom was never waiting on perfection. It was waiting on your yes. Yes to being seen. Yes to being wrong sometimes. Yes to breaking the spell, the fear spell, a spell of I'm not ready. You are. You always were. The fear you feel is not a stop sign. It's a signal, a sign you're close to truth, close to power, close to freedom. So don't retreat, not maul. You've come too far. Fear is not your enemy. It's your final mirror. Look into it and walk through. Because behind it is the version of you that never bowed, never forgot, never died, only waited. And now you've arrived. There's a lie that says you're too late. that the world is too far gone, that change is hopeless. But that lie is fear in disguise, because the system fears what you might become. It fears the moment you stop obeying. It fears your healing, your clarity, your fire, because one awakened soul can ignite thousands, and you're already sparking. The chains aren't real. They only held as long as you believed them, and now you don't. So walk, even if your legs shake, even if the world says stay asleep. Walk, because your steps are prophecy. Your breath is rebellion. Your memory is sacred. You are not here to entertain their comfort. You are here to confront the lie that says fear is holy, the lie that says silence is safety, the lie that says you must be small to be loved. You don't need to shrink to be sacred. You don't need to ache to be enough. You don't need to fear to be faithful. You need to remember. Remember the garden, the fire, the bloodline of rebels that sing in your veins. They were called witches, mystics, heretics, but they were awake, and so are you. You don't need to escape the fire. You are the flame. Look around you. The systems that once ruled are cracking, because lies don't last. Only truth endures. And your truth is shaking the ground. You were told to stay quiet, but silence is no longer an option. Not when children are born into chains. Not when the sacred is sold. Not when your own reflection has been turned into a prison. No, you don't bow anymore. You rise, even if it breaks the rules. Especially then, fear is the rust of truth left unused. But now you remember, and what you remember cannot be unseen. This world doesn't need more obedience. It needs more awakening, more art, more flame, more voices that refuse to fit in. You are the medicine, the fire, the storm, the calm after. And this is your time. Not to be perfect, but to be present, to be raw, to be flame, because fear cannot hope. A soul on fire. The journey isn't easy, but it's real. You'll lose things, people, illusions, comfort, but you'll gain something priceless. Yourself. The self beneath survival. The self before the system, before religion became a cage, before fear became a god. You'll return, not backwards, but inward. And in that return, you'll find light. Not the kind that blinds, the kind that reveals. The kind that says, you are never broken. The kind that sings, you were always divine. That's the truth fear buried. But truth has a pulse, and it's beating in you now. So keep walking, keep remembering, because every step through fear is a step toward your throne. You are not a sinner. You are a seed, cracking open to become something holy, not because they said so, but because you remembered. They tried to make fear your teacher, but fear was never your master. It was the test before truth, the threshold before memory. They said obedience was love, but love without freedom is just control. And you were born free, before guilt, before shame, before the word sin was used like a weapon. They needed you to believe you were unworthy, because unworthy people don't rebel. Unworthy people stay silent, but your soul never forgot. Even in silence, you were sacred. Even in exile, you were royal. Even in fear, you were fire. And now, you're waking up. Fear trembles at your rise, because it knows you're remembering too much. Remembering the feminine divide, the sacred masculine, the dot inside, the goddess unbound. Remembering that no book can contain the infinite. No priest can mediate your divinity. You don't need a middleman to know the sacred. You are the sacred, walking, bleeding, breathing, becoming. This is not just personal. This is ancestral. The fear they planted was generational. But you are the interruption, the healing, the reckoning. You carry the torch your grandmother hid under her ribs, the chant your grandfather whispered when they took his name. You are not alone in this fire. You are the return, The voice, the remembering, the rebellion. And it starts not with war, but with truth. With saying, I'm still here. With saying, I see what they buried. With saying, no more. No more caging your light. No more fearing your power. No more pretending you don't feel it. The roar inside. The one that says, wake the others. The one that says, light the path, because it's dark out there. And fear still rules many, but not you. Not anymore. You've seen too much. You've burned too long. You're not afraid of fire. You are made of it. There's a version of you on the other side of fear. They're not perfect. They're not untouchable. But they're real, whole, free. They walk without apology. They speak without shaking. They love without leashes. And you can feel them now, waiting, calling, pulling you through. Not with force, but with memory. Because deep down, you always knew. You always knew that holiness wasn't fear. It was love. It was fire. It was the ache to become. And now you're becoming, unfolding, returning. You've stopped asking for permission. You've stopped waiting to be good enough. You are enough. Even in your trembling, even in your doubt, even in your becoming, you are sacred now. Not when you arrive, now. Because presence is the altar, and you are finally here. This fire doesn't need to be loud. It can burn in silence, but it still burns. Burns through lies. Burns through chains. Burns through every mask you wore to survive. And as they melt, you see yourself. Not who they said you were, but who you've always been. Ancient, powerful, holy. The system fears this you. That's why it taught you fear. But you've stopped listening. You hear something deeper now. The whisper beneath the fear. The one that says, rise. The one that says, return. The one that says, burn it all down. Everything that kept you small. Because your light was never meant to fit their box. It was meant to blaze, to open paths, to summon memory. You are the myth reborn, the truth unburied, the soul that couldn't stay silent. And this is only the beginning. So now I ask you, what fear still guards the doorway to your truth? What shame still whispers you are not ready? What memory still binds your voice, your power, your name? Look at it, face it, then walk through, because you are not here to play small. You are not here to perform piety. You are here to burn holy, to rise mythic, to speak the unspeakable, to become the one they said would never return. You are the ancestors' answer, the flame that didn't go out, the soul that remembered. And now, you carry the torch, for the forgotten, for the silenced, for the fire they tried to bury. Fear is not holy, but you are. So walk into the flame, and let the world see what sacred truly looks like. Because this fire, it's yours now, and you were never meant to survive it. You were meant to become it. Share this fire with someone still trapped in fear, and subscribe to Echoes of the Forbidden, where memory rises, and obedience dies.